Morning. So today I want to look at righteousness. And so the message for today is rebuilding the walls of righteousness in our generation and standing in the gap. So I think today I'm really just going to speak verses. That's the only thing that can back up what has been laid in my heart. And the main verse comes from Ezekiel 22 verse 30. And it says, this is God speaking. He says, I looked for someone who might rebuild the wall of righteousness that guards the land. I searched for someone to stand in the gap in the wall so I wouldn't have to destroy the land, but I found no one. And yeah, that was just God really also speaking to me and being like, Remo, can you rebuild the land? Can I search your generation and find you amongst those who are willing to stand in the gap, who have consecrated themselves, who are dedicated to living a life of righteousness, to being in right standing with me, who are willing to be called to the prayer closet at the wee hours of the morning, who are willing to sacrifice, and not just only obedience, but sacrifice so many things for me, like Abraham, who are willing to be part of a generation that is an army. He says that I'm raising up an army, and will you be a part of it? We sing, Lord, whatever you're doing in this season, please don't do it without me. Lord, we say, here I am, I give myself away for you to use me, send me. But he's saying, today, if I searched your land, if I searched your campus, if I searched your workplace, if I searched your household, if I searched your community, would I find you amongst those who are willing to rebuild the land and stand in the gap? And Nehemiah 2 verse 18 says, so the men were going to rebuild the wall. And it says, they say to each other, let us rise up and rebuild the wall. And so they strengthened their hands for good works. And what I just understand is that I think there are certain things that we need to rise up off of. There's certain things which we're comfortable in, we're in our comfort zones, and we need to get off that, whether it be on our beds where we are sleeping. And God is saying, let me not find you asleep at a time when I need you most. I'm putting watchmen on the walls of Jerusalem. So let us be part of that. If it means maybe you're in a boat at a time when, you're moving, but you're not sure of the direction. You're a bit stagnant, when winds and waves come, you're also there tossing and turning, and you're not sure, who's in the distance. Is that you, Jesus? If it be you, call me out to walk on waters, It's like, Spirit, lead me, where my faith is without borders. And that's exactly what it is. And I think there are many things that we are sitting on. There are many things where we're at, where we need to rise up from, where we need to, rise up and come away with Jesus and be led to rebuild this wall, to be strengthened. And I believe we also need the armor of God for us to prepare. Even as an army, we need to be armored with the full armor of God. And looking at righteousness, the piece of armor is the breastplate, which comes in front, which also means we need to guard our hearts, we need to guard our minds, we need to be fully standing firm in his word. And, Joshua 3 verse 5 says, consecrate yourselves today in the Lord, and tomorrow God will do great wonders amongst you. And I believe also, when great wonders aren't happening around us, it's because we haven't consecrated ourselves in our generation. And, 1 Chronicles 29 verse 5 actually asks, now who is willing to consecrate themselves to the Lord today? And I want to pose that as well. Are you willing to consecrate yourself to the Lord? To die to self, that less of us and more of God. And dying to the flesh completely, it's very hard. I think it's a very difficult thing. But, once we're born again, once we're really serious about God, our life needs to show that. And we see them by their fruits. So the question is, does your tree even have fruits? And then it poses, is there even a tree for fruits to grow on? We really need to be willing to do a lot of things for Christ. Paul and Job were such great men. Paul sacrificed a lot. He persecuted, suffering, went through all these things, and even amongst that, he still really praised God. Job was such a blameless man. Abraham walked with God and was a friend of God, who was blameless. Noah, Genesis records that Noah was a blameless man in his times. He said, I think it says the only blameless man in his time, and he walked with God. And we know that the word says, the righteous shall live by faith, and that we walk by faith. So what I pose to you is a reflection, and that reflection is found in 2 Corinthians 5 verse 13. It reads as follows: examine yourselves to see if your faith is genuine. Test yourselves. Surely you will know that Jesus Christ is among you. If not, you have failed the test of genuine faith. And so if Christ is not being reflected in your life, if Christ is not reflected in your generation through you, then we know we have failed the test of genuine faith. I believe that there are many different belief systems, many different faiths, but that genuine faith is when we know that Christ is amongst us and he's doing great wonders once we've consecrated ourselves. And because of that, we need to understand how to live, and I ask God, how do I test my genuine faith? But I know it really just is having the presence of God, is also just obeying his commandments. In Deuteronomy, it speaks of, we can count as righteousness if we obey the commandments of God. And the last verse that I want to share is found in Ephesians 5 from verse 15 to 17. And it says, look carefully then how you walk. Live purposefully and worthily and accurately, not as the unwise and witless, but as the wise, making the very most of your time, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be vague and thoughtless and foolish, but understanding and firmly grasping what the will of the Lord is. The second part says, making the most of the time, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be vague and thoughtless and foolish, but understanding and firmly grasping what the will of the Lord is. And, I believe that this isn't a time to be vague about our Christianity. It's a time where we are radical. It's a time where we are intentional and purposeful about it. We are living purposefully and worthily and accurately, as it says in verse 15. And to live accurately means that every step is directed. It means that our paths are straight. There's no other assumption. It is what it is. So you're not like, oh, I didn't know you were Christian. This is how you live in your life. So I believe that this is not a time to be vague. This is a time to be real, to stand up, to stand in the gap for Christ, to be a Christ ambassador and to be willing to lay our lives before him. That's how you know that this is a friend of God. That's how you know that you love someone, if you lay your lives for them, And so let us understand that the times are evil, and that if we do not stand in the gap, if we're not going to be the ones to rebuild the wall, then God is going to use someone else, and we will have to be accountable for that. So this week, really just test your faith, see how genuine your faith is, see what is lacking, see which part of the armor you still need to put on, and really trust God to raise you up as part of the generation. You don't want to be left out as a generation that is rising. We need to go out there and people need to hear of us. And, the question as well is that if we could rewrite the Bible in our times, would you be part of those radical men and women that were mentioned in the Bible? Would you be part of the strong, lineage of Jesus Christ? Who would you be? Would you be part of those who were weak and could fall off easily in their faith? Or would you be those like Job and Abraham and Noah and Mary and Martha, who were submissive, and obedient to the will of God? Find out who you are, and even if it means being you, but create that, be your own person in this new generation, in this new era that God is doing, because the days are evil and Christ needs you to stand in the gap.